How's it going, guys? My name is Tavarish, and today we're going to transform my cheap Lamborghini's dirty engine into a V10 exotic work of art. This is going to be fun. If you're new to my channel, thank you very much for showing up. Thank you very much for viewing my work in progress. And you can subscribe if you like what you see. This, behind me, is my 2008 Lamborghini Gallardo Spider. It's taken apart. I'm in the process of putting it back together. But before I put it back together, I'm going to use the fact that I have so much access to the engine and engine bay to clean this up just a little bit. Now, this engine is a very high-strung, very exotic, and very good-looking engine. I mean, you can see the exposed velocity stacks here. There is a piece that goes on here. We're gonna do something with that later in the episode, but just look at it. It looks really, really cool. It is a V10 5-liter. It's an even firing order. It's hand-built. It's Italian. It's just all the things that you really want in an engine, but it's seen some better days. It is kind of dirty. There is some corrosion around, and unfortunately, because of the car's history, it has a little bit of fire damage on the valve cover over here. So I want to make this engine look like it's the $50,000 engine that this car came with. By the way, that is actually how much these engines cost if you get them new. It's really, really insane. But the road to turn this thing into a factory fresh engine is a long one indeed. Now, it's not gonna be too long. I am gonna finish this in this episode, but I wanna show you guys, I wanna tell you guys what I'm gonna use to make this into a little bit more presentable, a little bit more palatable on the eyes engine. And we're gonna start here. This is the aluminum block, the aluminum engine block, and as you can see, aluminum does not rust, but it does corrode. There is some surface corrosion with moisture, and sometimes water gets on it, and water's hard, and sometimes it creates this nasty oxidation. And we want to get rid of that. We also want to make sure that it looks factory fresh. I don't want it to look shiny. I don't want a polished aluminum look. I think that's a little bit overboard, says the guy who just put gold everywhere. But I would like this to look like it's just clean, not ready for SEMA. So what I'm gonna do is I just have a brass bristle brush here, and I'm just gonna knock down that corrosion right here. And brass is really, really soft metal, and it's not gonna do anything to the aluminum. Yeah, it's already cleaning it up pretty good, so I'm gonna have to move these lines out of the way. They're coolant lines and vacuum lines and stuff that I never took off before. But yeah, you can see how this already paying dividends, and it's giving it a little bit of a luster, bringing back that luster. So I'm gonna have to give it a go with this guy. And also, I'll spray it with some degreaser. I have some degreaser in here. It's just some regular simple green type stuff. It's diluted 5:1, so 1 part degreaser and 4 parts water, or 5 parts water. I can't remember which one it was. And I'm just gonna spray it down. Just kind of use liberal amounts, making sure not to get it into the velocity stacks here, even though it would probably evaporate and it's not really that big of a deal. So small squirts, giggity. Yeah, that should get a lot of the debris loose. And then I'm gonna hit it with the wire brush. All right, guys, look at that. Here is the finished product. Well, almost finished. I still have to give it a few more passes with some extra fine steel wool. And here is the not touched at all. And you can see that there's a lot of corrosion here. It's just dirty, and this is nice and clean. I also did part of the middle intake manifold here. That's actually the middle, and there's a lower right here. It's quite complex, but I also did the power steering pump down there and a little bit of the block. Now I will still have to go through the entire engine and make sure that everything is corrosion free, but I want to take this as a given. Let's just pretend I did that side right now, and let's move on to something else, something a little bit more exciting, and that is this intake manifold. Well, actually, this is not an intake manifold, it's a intake plenum. This is the collector. This goes on top of the velocity stacks that you just saw. Now, this is something that I've always liked on these Lamborghinis. It's basically the signature piece that goes on top, and it gives it that exotic feel. The only thing is, I think I need to modify mine, or at least spruce it up. Now, this is a black wrinkle paint, and it actually does look pretty good, but there are a few blemishes. There's a little bit of a nick here, and just all around there's some scratches. And of course, me putting a bunch of chains on top, that never really helped it. But I think that we can make this look better than new. So there are a few options when it comes to colors when you're dealing with this crinkle textured finish. And it's usually black or red. And since red would be fitting on an exotic, that's more of a Ferrari thing. Ferrari really loves using red in all their intake manifolds. Me putting it on Lamborghini, that just didn't make any sense, especially with the rivalry between Ferrari and Lamborghini over the years. Sidebar, that's actually how Lamborghini started. It started with a fight between Ferruccio Lamborghini and Enzo Ferrari. Google that. But I'm gonna borrow a little stylistic tidbit from my previous exotic car, my Aston Martin. And even though that car didn't have it, a lot of Aston Martins do have this, and it's a white intake manifold with these raised letters being brushed aluminum. So since they don't actually make a crinkle white, or at least it was really hard to find in the store, I'm gonna have to improvise. So what I got was a can of VHT engine enamel, and this is just white, and this goes on your engine. It protects apparently up to 550 degrees Fahrenheit, which is good. I don't think my engine will get to that temperature. If it does, then I have other issues than the paint coming off. But what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go over this paint, and I'm gonna make sure it's very, very thin. And if I do it thin enough, I think I'll get this, this textured finish. Hopefully that's the idea. I've never actually done this, but I think if I just do very, very light coats, it's just gonna retain this texture. And then I can just sand the top layer off, and I'll have this nice embossed Lamborghini emblem. But before that, I'm gonna have to clean it up with some degreaser as always. So I'm gonna give it a few nice liberal spritzes of this. And then I'm gonna mask off a few places. So I'm gonna mask off this. This is where the mass air pressure sensor is, and manifold absolute pressure or something. And I'm gonna mask off these. That's where the throttle bodies live. And that's about it. Then I can spray it down. And obviously I'm gonna have to open up my garage and have it more ventilated because I don't want it to suffocate. But this should be interesting because I've never actually attempted this before. So fingers crossed. Look at that. That is exactly the look that I wanted. Now I did end up using pretty much the entire can, but it is finished and it's all uniform. Now I did get the wrinkle finish that I wanted. I just had to do really, really light coats. I think we did like 5 or 6 coats, and it looks really good. Now this is not the final product. This is not its final form. I still have to sand down the Lamborghini letters. But before we get to that, I want to show you something else. These are my valve covers. These are the valve covers that cover the engine on either side. And as you can see, they're not in really good shape. This one actually was in the fire, and I think this one has a little bit of fire damage as well. But here you can see pretty clearly that, yeah, the paint is bubbling, and it's just a nasty, nasty mess. So what I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna take the wire wheel attachment of this drill, and I'm going to just get everything down to a level. Now I don't have to do a super thorough job, just make sure that these ridges are out, because I'm not gonna be using a paint like this. I'm not gonna be using a flat, non-textured paint. What I'm actually gonna be using is something a little unorthodox. Now, usually when people do this sort of thing, they do a wrinkle black. And the wrinkle black is very similar to the wrinkle white that we just did. And they would use this. This is a VHT Wrinkle Plus. we're not gonna use this because I want something with a little more wrinkle, a little more durability, and also it's a little bit cheaper, it's easier to touch up, and it doesn't take a whole day to dry. So what I'm actually using is truck bed coating. So some of you might be thinking I've lost my mind, but no, actually, a lot of diesel guys on the diesel forums, they use truck bed coating on their valve covers to quiet down their clickety-clackety valve trains. And even though my valve train is quite quiet, doesn't actually make a lot of noise, this truck bed coating is gonna provide a pretty good insulation from heat, from noise, and all that stuff. Plus, it's a little bit more wrinkly, a little bit more textured than the Wrinkle Plus. It's also a bonus that I don't have to do as much prep work on these valve covers as I would on any other painted surface. But speaking of prep work, let's get these sanded. Okay, while we're waiting for the valve covers to dry, I got the intake manifold on, and man, this looks really, really good. You can even see that it complements the brushed aluminum look. I achieved this with a little bit of elbow grease and a little bit of steel wool. It really shines pretty nice, and I don't want it polished, but I do like this, this nice semi-shiny brushed look. But as you can see, the Lamborghini emblems are still white, and we don't need them white. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to sand them off. But before I do that, I'm gonna take a razor blade and skim the top layer of paint right off. So when we sand, it's not really gonna gum up anything. So theoretically, this should be okay. I'm not quite sure because I've never actually done this before, but I definitely need to clean my hands because my hands are absolutely filthy. You know what? I'll wear gloves for this because this is now too clean to touch. All right, that looks like an exotic engine. That's exactly what I was looking for in terms of looks. I wanted it to look sort of like the Aston Martin DBS intake manifold. I think the Vanquish also had it. This looks very, very good, but it's missing a few things, namely the valve covers. Let's get them on right now. Boom! Look at that. That is so good looking. So take a look at this. This used to be the fire damage side, and now it is nice and crinkly, and it is very, very clean. And take a look at this intake manifold. Now the manifold it looks brand new. And all this, it looks like a polished aluminum, and it sort of is. That's sort of what it is because it is aluminum and I did polish it. But this engine looks so much better than it did just this morning. Wow. And you can tell this is much, much cleaner. There's a little bit of a luster here. Even the block, it's really clean. Now, it's not perfect as far as everything else surrounding it, but we're doing baby steps. And this goes to show you that you can basically overhaul the look of your engine with like 15 bucks worth of paint and a little bit of elbow grease. This looks so good. I'm just geeking out so much. Looks really exotic. Let me know in the comments if you guys like this. And if you don't, then maybe you keep your comments to yourself. How about that? I think this is starting to look like a $50,000 engine for real. Wow. Yeah, this is probably the cleanest engine I've ever owned. Hopefully it stays like this, but knowing me, it probably won't. So that's gonna be it for today. I hope you guys liked this video. I certainly loved making it, and I love the result. So everything that I used as far as the paints and all that stuff, that's gonna all be in the video description. If you'd like to contact me for any reason, you wanna tell me what I did wrong with this, or you wanna tell me how you like it and you wanna do the same thing on your car, you can contact me at The Real Tavarish. That is Instagram and Twitter. Facebook.com/AskTavarish and AskTavarish@gmail.com is my email, and I read every single one, and I thank every single one of you for sending me so many emails ever since I got this car. Also keep in mind, this is the Friday video, so you won't see another video until Monday, so don't freak out if you don't see one tomorrow. They're coming up every weekday at noon. So that's my upload schedule, and I'll let you know if I skip a day. Sometimes I do. Sometimes these things take a little while, and I don't have enough to make an episode in one day. So that sort of happens every once in a while. But until next time, this is me telling you that on cars like this that now look awesome, you guys need to wrench every day.